Every time we get Rostermania intel on Twitter, I feel like everybody gets so excited. You guys know that Jonah Hill meme where he's like, ah.
I don't think it's worth me being tired over. Just stay and watch Gossip Girl with me.
This is the community right now. Every time there's like anything crazy happening with Rostermania, we're just like, oh my God. Anyway, it's been a while now that we have moves finally being made, right? The dominoes fallen a little bit. We can kind of round up all the information that we know so far and kind of summarize where we're at. That's the mindset. So the big one, right? The big thing that happened today, Optic have released 3 players from their roster, right? So Lucid, Trippy, Deadzone are no longer on Optic as of today. End of an era. A lot of people seem to be out of the loop and surprised, like they're just kind of catching the info right now. Pretty wild though, right? They've been at least Trippy and Lucid have been on Optic since Infinite came out. It's been 3 years already. Time's been flying by. Lucid's entire existence on Halo Infinite has been, through the Optic org. So it's really the end of an era. They got 4 LAN championship wins and a Worlds. They got nothing with Deadzone. Unfortunately, they got only second place, like 6 events in a row. They're an incredible team. It was time to make a change. I was looking at some of the tweets from like the players. I thought the formal tweet was kind of interesting. They won when they had APG. I know they haven't won without APG, interestingly. Best of luck, boys. One of the most unlucky years ever, but I'm sure next year will be better for all of us. Godspeed. Just kind of straight to the point. You can tell he looks back at the year and he's not happy about it. We saw him on the podcast. They got so close so many times they couldn't clutch it out. It's almost worse than getting like 4th or lower, right? Even though 2nd is an achievement for most people. Like when you get that close to winning it and you're not able to win it, it's like got to be like one of the most gut-wrenching feelings. So Formal's ready to move on to the next thing. The vibe that I get is that all 4 of them are splitting up in different directions. Obviously, we have a good understanding of where Formal and Lucid are going to end up. Trippy and Deadzone are kind of like a question mark. What that does mean, though, is that this Optic roster is really looking like a reality. This God Squad is about to happen. APG had a live stream recently, and he had mentioned that the deal with no specifics is moving forward. And this is likely in regards to Optic and SSG. I wouldn't be surprised at this point, now that they're finally, releasing these players. We're going to get Bound, Legend, Renegade on this Optic team. Hector, on like a recent Optic YouTube video or something, came up to Formal and he said, I heard that he got good news. Here, listen to this. Oh, here we go.
What's up, man? Somebody received some good news this morning? Huh? Somebody received some good news this morning?
I did.
Oh, you're gonna have a baby. Nice. Yo.
He said he's having a baby. Yeah, he said somebody received some good news this morning, right? And then Formal with a smile, right? So obviously that could be a number of things. But hey, man, I think that's intel. Honestly, I'm going to just call it and say I think that's intel. I think the deal was locked in at that point. That also means that SSG gets what? Lucid, Snakebite, Eco, and Stellar. Assuming that locks in, that's a God Squad too. The big thing I didn't expect today was Lunchbox departing the roster. So Lunchbox is released as well. Anybody see this coming, chat? So there's one of 3 reasons as to why something like this would happen. 1 would be they dropped him and they found somebody better. 2 would be Psych and Optic are leaving esports altogether, right? And they just dropped the whole roster and they're just done. Sorry, like Halo Esports, which hopefully not. That'd be terrible. And 3 is that Lunchbox decided to leave himself. Lunchbox said he's done for whatever reason. We might never know. And I'm going to say it's got to be 3, right? Yeah. First off, you don't drop... Who would you drop Lunchbox for? You don't just drop the GOAT. Like, there's no other coach that I can think of that would replace Lunchbox that would somehow be better for the job than Lunchbox. Like, he is the man for the job. On top of the fact that it would require all the time and the investment and the building the chemistry, with a new coach. Formal has mentioned on his live streams, he wanted to keep Lunchbox, right? Like, he's got a lot of respect for Lunchbox. So this is not formal, dropping the man. That definitely didn't happen. I think this is on Lunchbox. I think Lunchbox, for whatever reason, has decided he wants to step away from Halo, and we might never know why. Lunchbox has got a life. He's a certified electrician. I'm not sure if he's currently working as one, but he can go back into working if he wants to and focusing on his life, staying out of Halo. He's always going to be welcome back. But yeah, it opens the conversation of like, who else could coach Optic? I saw Tony drop a tweet about Coach Maniac, which would be vibey as hell. It'd be pretty cool. He's saying, everyone keeps saying Elamite to Optic. Does anyone think Coach Maniac returns? I mean, as cool as that would be, just from a vibes standpoint, I just can't see it happening. Like, Maniac doesn't play. He doesn't grind. On the interview with Formal just recently, when he was asking Formal about his tournament wins, he wasn't even aware of how many times the team had gotten second place, because you could tell he's kind of been in and out of Halo. That's not to discredit the man. Obviously, he's got a lot of knowledge and background in Halo, but he's just not currently grinding. I would want a coach who's a pro player, somebody who's invested in the scene, who is invested in the meta, who's keeping up with the other teams. Maniac would have to really be passionate about the idea of coaching. It's just not going to happen. It's a fun idea. Elamite is the other one. Everybody's saying like Optic Elamite. Are we going to get Coach Elamite? That would be cool too. Obviously, Elamite would be good for the job. Like he's got plenty of experience coaching a top team. He's coaching SSG. But why? Why would he do it? Well, there would be some incentive. Maybe he can make some money. I don't know if they're going to offer him more money or something. Or like working with Optic might be a nice plus because it's Optic. Elamite's been associated with SSG since they became a Halo org, right? He's been there since the beginning. He's got a great relationship with SSG. Like that's not going anywhere. I don't see why he would sacrifice his relationship to join Optic as a coach when he's doing perfectly fine where he is, how things are, right? So I don't see Elamite going anywhere. And I don't see Optic investing more money than they probably already have to poach another member of SSG. It already probably cost them a freaking arm and leg just to get Legend and Bound to begin with, right? That's got to be a crazy acquisition. So yeah, I don't see Elamite being the one. I think it would have to be somebody who's like a pro-level player who's currently coaching, who might be available. Droops, you brought up Tusk. I think that's a pretty solid assumption. I think somebody like Tusk would be a good option. Now, would that be a Lunchbox level replacement? Like on paper, no, in my opinion. Like it's hard to replace Lunch. He's kind of the GOAT. But one thing that somebody like Tusk would bring to the table is just knowledge and in-game experience. Like he's currently at the pro level. He's got a lot of experience playing with these guys as well, constantly playing like, you know, money 8s, money 2s. So he would fit right in that environment. The world would probably be less excited about the idea of it because we all know Lunchbox, but maybe it gives Tusk an opportunity to do something special. We'll see if that is who they choose. You know, that's something to keep in mind too, though. That, whoever coaches a roster, this would probably never happen. Like, you know, hopefully, God forbid. There's a rule in HCS where if one of your players can't play, then the coach has to play as a sub, and you can't just like grab somebody else. Like if the coach can't play, then you basically are like DQ'd, something like that in HCS. So it's almost like a requirement as a coach to be good at the game. In the worst case scenario, something happens like a Drux situation where he can't make it across the border for whatever reason, so that like that person can maybe step. It would still gimp the team, it'd still be difficult. But anyway, has this happened in Halo Esports before, where one team wins a world championship and then their team breaks up and gets poached by the team that they beat? Like that does not happen often in any esport. From the perspective of like, if you're like an SSG fan, it's almost like a scandal. They just won a world championship. They've got an opportunity to be a dynasty, and they suddenly break up and they're joining Optic. Half the team joining Optic now, not during HCS lifetime, right? I'm trying to think, what would incentivize it? Like a lot of people just say it's money, they just threw money at it. Is it just that? I don't think it's that simple, right? From SSG's perspective, they still have a solid roster. One like attractive proposition, I think, if I'm SSG, behind having Snakebite and Lucid specifically, is the brand and the platform that they bring to that roster. SSG is full of talent, but they don't have like a superstar brand type player, you know what I mean? So having somebody like Lucid, representing that org, or Snakebite representing that org, I think is a good opportunity to help bring SSG into a more prominent, more valuable position as an esports org in Halo, maybe. And then the other big thing, I think, is just it was what the players want. They have a young superstar and they let him leave. Yeah, but so the understanding that I got is that Formal offered the opportunity to Bound and Legend to join Optic, and they wanted it. They didn't talk to the rest of their teammates about it, as far as I'm aware. I think Eco and Stellar found out later. And having found out later, Eco and Stellar are obviously not happy about this. They don't want their teammates to leave. But I think the mindset that they had was like, okay, if this is what you want to do, then screw you. Go ahead, join Optic. We're not going to let you back anymore. Like, I don't want to team with somebody who behind my back decided they want to join Optic. Like, that's fine. If you want to do that, we'll beat you without you. I can imagine if I'm Eco or Stellar, like, you've got the confidence and the experience to know, like, I can still win without these guys, Not that it's bad blood specifically, but it's a nice little rivalry, I think. Well, okay, so if you're Bound or Legend, why would you choose Optic? There's a lot of good reasons for it. It's not really just money, right? Like, you're Bound or Legend, you just won a world championship. You're kind of like, if you're an achievement hunter, you're like crossing off all the achievements on the freaking bucket list, right? Do you guys watch anime at all? You guys heard of Blue Lock? Anybody? Just bear with me here on my tangent. Blue Lock is like a soccer, football anime. It's kind of like Squid Game. If you ever heard of Squid Game, where they have like a bunch of games, and if you lose, you sign up for the game. If you lose, you die. But the cool thing about Blue Lock is it's like Squid Game, but soccer. If you lose, then your soccer career is over, basically. So they poach like 300 soccer players from high school to join this like Blue Lock facility where they have to go head to head. And the winner, one player out of 300, gets to join the national team for Japan to compete for a World Cup. And the whole idea behind this facility is to like train the ultimate striker player, basically. And to become the ultimate player, They have this concept where you have to get in touch with like your ego and to be a monster. Like the idea of this ego is listening to and becoming the monster inside of you, so to speak. It's a crazy concept, but it just has to do with pushing your limits and doing anything that it takes to be the best. And I see this position of like Bound and Legend as that, as listening to the monster inside of them, if that makes sense. Do you want to stay on SSG where you just won and it's comfortable? Or do you want to push your limits, join Optic, the biggest, most well-known organization in console esports, and team with a legend in Formal? This guy's got a legacy. And then challenge yourself to do it all over again in a totally different space, you know, to flip your whole world around. That's what it is. It's like following your ego. It's about the legacy. It's not just like one win isn't enough. I need to be the best in the world. I'm going to do this. I'm going to join Optic, right? So that's how I see it. Blue Lock, you guys should watch it. It's a sick anime. It's about doing anything that it takes to like be the best in the world and leave that freaking legacy behind. So Bound tweets this, right? Green Goblin. This is what reminds me of it too. Listening to the monster inside of you, you know, like accessing your full potential. So Green Goblin, I mean, the whole Green Goblin thing too is it speaks to him, right? The goblin speaks to him like in his head.
You make me sick.
Leave me alone, please.
Hiding in the shadows. Hiding from who you truly are.
Oh.
You can't escape yourself.
He's obviously talking about Optic here. We're going to get Optic Bound coming in. I think this is a great little call to, you know, having Bound on this roster and the kind of chemistry and the vibes. There's a force behind this roster, you know, of personality, of like a want to win, a drive to win. Bound brings that. Renegade brings that. There's like, these guys are kind of monsters on the map. So I don't know. I'm just like on paper, this might be my favorite Optic roster of all time. I like SSG's little clap back right here. Here's the SSG clap back. I do think the biggest, I didn't really talk about it too much. I think the biggest difficulty for Optic going forward is going to be their OBJ efficiency. It's the same issue that FaZe had, where they stacked a bunch of Slayers. Like they put a fantasy team together on paper with FaZe, and they struggled in OBJ efficiency. But I think Optic is a little bit more well-rounded in that category. You've got Legend, who is an OBJ savant, and he's the fastest flag runner in the game. So no doubt he's going to continue doing what he's doing there. And you got Bound, who's insanely fast and flexible. I feel like Bound's the type of player to open up opportunities for the team. He's the type of player who's not afraid to take a risk and to die in some cases to open up something for the team. Or Formal is going to be the one who's going to have to maybe pick up oddball a little bit more. Who knows? But I think the big difference between this Optic roster and the FaZe roster is the speed of the team. I think Legend and Bound is the fastest duo in the game. The guys are just fast. The big issue with FaZe is they had no problem slaying, but they couldn't capitalize on their opportunities to play the OBJ. I don't know. I just think that you've got players who have a better opportunity, I think, to capitalize. We're not going to know till we see it. Basically, we're not going to know anything till we see it. That might be the hurdle for Optic, though, their roles on the team, and too many cooks in the kitchen, too many Slayers. Outside of that, we've got some question marks about what that means for everybody else, right? Because things are going to happen quickly. So what does this mean for FaZe? It leaves Frosty and Royal 2 on an island, and the assumption is that they're sticking together as a duo. The rumored FaZe roster, I have no idea. So that was Suppressed and Deadzone. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think this roster could slap. This could be a good roster. Assuming Frosty and Royal 2 stick together and they want 2 more players to round out the team, I think their best options are going to be either these two or Cycle or Last Shot. Maybe Trippy. I don't know if I see it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not to discredit Trippy, because I do think he's like an incredible player. He had the most challenging year on Optic, I think. Like in comparison to others, you've got Deadzone, who still had a great year, who I still think is a very attractive pick right now. Are they going to stay together? I have no idea. The vibe, like the impression that I'm getting, is that they're going to split 4 ways and that they won't continue playing together. In the first year of Infinite, with the BR meta, Trippy was like a superstar player, I would say. With the Bandit meta, he's struggled to find his impact in the same way. And I think it's also because Deadzone brought so much to the team. Like, he brought more than just the OBJ efficiency that APG brought. He brought slaying power as well. And it put Trippy in like an island, sort of. And it kind of like how Frosty's had a trickier year, because Renegade joined the team. And Frosty was like, you know, main Slayer with Royal 2, but now Renegade's sort of taking that spot and it put Frosty in a more difficult position. And he's not looking as good on the stat sheet. It's really hard to say. His ability's there. He still deserves to be on a top team. But is he as attractive of a pickup as Deadzone? I don't think so. And then at the same time, like if I'm FaZe, I would want to mix things up and I would want to take a gamble on a newer player with a high potential, high ceiling. Cycle, like his potential just seems higher. He's young. He's #1 ranked in the game in ranked. Not that that matters. And he's helped bring Shopify to a top 4 position throughout the year, minus that one, you know, Pure kind of snuck in at the end. You've got Last Shot in that position as well. Last Shot's what, 19? Between the two, I feel like it's interchangeable. Could they both end up sticking together? I got no freaking idea. Who's going to get Last Shot and Cycle, right? These are the guys that we're talking about. I think Suppress is a great option, though, too. And I don't want to theory craft to the point where I just sound like I'm talking on my ass. We know that Complexity dropped 2 of their players. They dropped Ryan and Rain. Ryan quote tweeted this, and he said that he's an FA for the next season. I was saying yesterday, I think he'd be a great option for a coach if that's something he wants, but it seems like he's still interested. It leaves an opening in the roster. So what we're thinking is Sparty. Sparty and Huster playing together. And then Precision joined the team for the Forge Hub tournament. That's all we have to go on. That doesn't mean that they're an actual roster, but they played a Forge Hub tournament together as this roster. This is a good team. Are they top 3? Like on paper, I'd say no. I'd say they're top 6. And I think Sparty is a top talent at this point. Like when I watch his clips on Twitter, I still think he's one of the best in the game. Like, I don't think anybody's making plays quite like he is, except, you know, your top 3s, like your Lucid, Renegade, etc. Like, his individual playmaking is still incredible. He deserves a roster. There's only so many orgs in the esport, too. The interesting thing with FaZe is when they leaked their roster, they didn't just leak it as FaZe, they leaked it as native. It's something that I've been hearing, and you know, I got my sources. At first I was thinking, is FaZe leaving the esport? There might be talks of like some sort of a combined effort between the organizations, FaZe and native, which sounds very odd, but this is something I've sort of been hearing a little bit. I could be talking about my ass, so take this with a grain of salt. And making some sort of a super team under the same banner, basically. Like Optic and Envy, yeah. And that's the thing with the state of the esport, you know, we see orgs are dropping out. I hope new orgs join. I don't know how much money is in this thing right now and how lucrative of an investment it is. I can't imagine it's that amazing. We do have a $1 million world championship, but like outside of that, kind of risky to be involved in Halo right now. But it would be interesting, I guess. I'm excited for the next season. I'm glad that the ball's finally rolling, right? I'm glad that we're finally locking things in. Now that this has happened, expect things to ramp up a little bit more quickly in the next couple weeks. But yeah, I mean, Optic looked deadly, dude. This might be my favorite Optic roster on paper.